I think to understand why that moment hit so hard, the F word moment, you have to understand my childhood a little better. It wasn't abusive or anything like that. Just structured. Imagine if the military had a baby with a piano conservatory and then hired a child psychologist to raise it. That's kind of what my home felt like. We didn't have a television. Not even one shoved into a cabinet, just for movies. My parents were convinced screens would rot our minds, and honestly, I don't know if they were totally wrong. Instead of cartoons, my brother and I read books, practiced music, and ran laps in the backyard. My dad is tall, clean-shaven man who smelled like leather and old coffee on our mornings like a drill sergeant. He'd barge into our rooms at 6:00 a.m. sharp, flip on the lights and shout, "You got 10 minutes to potty and make your beds, go." We'd scramble up, rubbing sleep out of our eyes, and within 15 minutes we'd be doing jumping jacks in the backyard, rain or shine. 10 sit-ups, 5 push-ups, and 2 laps. Always. Every morning. But here's the thing, when Dad came home from work, it was like a switch flipped. He wasn't Sir anymore. He was just Dad. Goofy, piano playing, story reading, monster voice Dad. He'd plop down in the living room with a glass of iced tea and suddenly be doing impressions of our cat or reading Drive, Seuss with the dramatic flair of a Broadway actor. He had this rich, musical voice that made everything sound like an adventure. Mom was more reserved, but deeply loving in her own quiet way. She taught us how to sew buttons, how to spot a lie, and how to boil a perfect egg. She didn't talk much about feelings, but you knew how she felt by how crisp your sheets were when she made your bed, or by how carefully she packed your lunch with a surprise note that just said 3. We were yes, sir, and yes, ma'am kids. There wasn't really room for backtalk, and you learned early that rules weren't suggestions, they were expectations. But that didn't mean we weren't loved. It just meant love looked a little different. And because of that world I grew up in, I had no idea what a curse word really was. I was practically vibrating with excitement. My first day of school. Real school. With other kids and everything. My mom had laid out my outfit the night before. A navy jumper with a white blouse, knee socks and brand new shoes that squeaked on the linoleum when I walked. She packed my lunch in a hard plastic strawberry shortcake box and sipped a note inside that said, "Be kind, be brave, love Mom." The bus ride was a mix of overwhelming noise and wide-eyed wonder. Kids were yelling, laughing, shoving, singing nonsense songs. I sat stiff as a board in the front row, clinging to my lunchbox like it was a flotation device on the Titanic. I wasn't scared, exactly, I was just stunned. I had no idea the world could be that loud, that chaotic. When we got to the school, it was just a whirlwind. Kids running in all directions, teachers trying to herd them like cats with whistles. I followed a girl with pigtails into my classroom and found my cubby. The teacher, Mrs. Becker, smiled at me with this practice warmth like she'd been smiling at children professionally for decades. She probably had. The morning passed in a blur, colours, crayons, rules about glue sticks, and no talking while the teacher is talking. But it was first recess that changed everything. It was warm out, and the blacktops smelled like melted rubber. I was watching kids play tag when I noticed 2 boys near the jungle gym. One shoved the other lightly, like it was part of a game. Then the other boy yelled, loud and clear, "You motherfucker." I froze. My brain tried to make sense of it. Mother, that's a good word. Fucker. I'd never heard it, but it sounded like sucker, which I liked. Suckers were a treat I got when I behaved at the doctor's. And if it was something about mothers and candy, clearly this was a very affectionate term. A loving word. And the way he said it. Old. Confident. It sounded important. Right then and there I decided I would use it. When the final bell rang, I walked out of that building with the confidence of a kid who just conquered the world. First day of school? Crushed it. Friends? Not exactly, but I waved at a girl who waved back, so it counted. Learned something new? Absolutely. I'd learned a beautiful new phrase to show my appreciation for my mom. She was already parked outside, her short blonde hair pulled back, and her sunglasses perched on her head like a little crown. She waved, smiled big, and helped me into the back seat, buckling me in like she always did. "Well," she said as she started the engine. "Did you have a good day?" "The best," I said, kicking my feet against the seat in pure joy. She smiled. "Good. I think that deserves a treat." It was perfect. It was my moment. I leaned forward and beamed at her through the rear-view mirror. "You're the best motherfucker in the whole world." She slammed the brakes so hard I flew forward in my seat. Her hand shot back like a reflex, not to hit me, but like she was trying to physically stop the word from escaping the air. What did you just say? I blinked. You're the best motherfucker in the whole world. I said it slower this time, unsure now. Her voice dropped into that deadly calm every child recognizes immediately. You do not say that word. Ever. Do you understand me? That is a very bad word. Where did you hear that? The shame hit me like a wave. My eyes welled up as I whispered at school. She didn't say another word, just turned the car around in the lot and headed straight back to the school. I had never seen my mother like that. She was usually reserved, polite, bordering on cold in public. But when we got into that front office, she unleashed what I can only describe as a monologue of righteous fury. The principal, a portly, balding man with a calm expression, tried to interrupt her. He couldn't. She stormed through an entire explanation of how this school had already corrupted her daughter on day one and how she had every right to sue or pull me out or both. I sat in the chair next to her, sniffling, cheeks on fire. The secretary gave me a tiny cup of water. I just stared into it like it might make this whole thing go away. Eventually, the principal calmed her down, and after a long, tense meeting about monitoring language on the playground, we left. Mom didn't say much on the way home. Neither did I. That night, I cried into my pillow, not because I got in trouble, but because I'd never seen my mom look so disappointed before. Not angry, sad. That's what hurt. The next morning breakfast was silent. No piano music. No dad cracking corny jokes. No playful teasing about how I poured orange juice like a toddler. Just the soft scrape of spoons in cereal bowls and the quiet hum of the fridge. I didn't know where to look. My mom didn't make eye contact with me. She was being nice too nice. The kind of calm that felt like a glacier was forming between us. When Dad kissed us goodbye, I felt a knot form in my stomach. I didn't know if I should say something. Apologize again? Pretend yesterday didn't happen? But after he left and the front door clicked shut, Mom finally sat down across from me and looked me square in the eye. You didn't know what that word meant, she said. I get that. But you need to understand there are words people say that are meant to hurt others. That word, it's not candy, it's poison. You wouldn't pour bleach in someone's drink just because the bottle looked pretty, right? I shook my head. Well, she continued, words are the same. Just because they sound harmless or even nice to your ears doesn't mean they're good. She paused. That's why we don't say words like that. I wanted to crawl under the table. I just thought it meant something nice, like sucker, like sweet. She smiled just a little and shook her head. You're a good kid, but now you know, and now, it's your job to make better choices. It stuck with me. That image of poison in a pretty bottle, of bleach in a cup. For a long time, I stayed far away from words I didn't understand. And school got a lot more confusing from that day on. It was like someone had pulled a curtain back and shown me that kids had their own language, a whole hidden code of words that never showed up in storybooks or piano sheet music. And now I noticed them everywhere. At recess, when someone fell off the monkey bars. Shit. When a boy dropped his tray in the cafeteria. Dumbass. When a girl messed up her art project. God damn it. It was a non-stop stream, and I felt like an alien. I didn't know whether to report it or try to blend in. I didn't even understand what most of them meant. One day in class, a kid behind me said, "Hey, did you hear Jason called Miss Fields a bitch?" I turned around with wide eyes. Miss Fields? The assistant teacher who read us Charlotte's Web? What's a bitch? I asked. Boy blinked, unsure whether I was messing with him. It means, like a mean lady. I nodded slowly. I had a lot of words to memorize, so I started a list. A literal list. At home, in the back of one of my coloring books, I began jotting down these secret words. I didn't dare ask my parents, but I wanted to know. If I didn't know what they meant, how could I know if they were bad, or if they were secretly good like motherfucker? So I wrote them down. Bitch, shit, asshole, goddamn, bastard. Each one like a cursed rune I discovered. Looking back, it was kind of hilarious. Like I was a little anthropologist documenting a tribe of rowdy, foul-mouthed natives. But to me, it felt important. It was like decoding the world I'd just been dropped into. Weeks passed. Maybe months. I was getting better at blending in. Not exactly swearing, but understanding when other kids did. and not reacting like a wide-eyed missionary every time I heard damn or crap. But one day I tried again. I don't remember why. I think I just wanted to feel like one of them. We were lining up after sweaty and giggly, and this one boy Andy tripped and knocked into me. We both stumbled, and I blurted, "Watch it, dumbass." Time froze. The girls in front of me gasped. Andy blinked like I'd slapped him. Teacher nearby turned her head instantly and pointed at me. "Excuse me, what did you just say?" And just like that, I was back in the principal's office. Again. Except this time, my mom didn't even look shocked when she picked me up. She just sighed and said, "So, you learned another one, huh?" I nodded. It didn't feel as good as I thought it would. She laughed a little, finally. They usually don't. The thing about my dad was he had layers. At home, he was a structured, clean-cut guy. The kind who folded laundry with military precision and said things like chop chop when we were running late. But when he truly relaxed, it was like another version of him slipped through. And I started to notice something after the second time I got sent to the principal's office. Dad kind of had a mouth on him. It started subtly. He was fixing a leaky faucet in the kitchen one Saturday and dropped a wrench on his toe. He muttered under his breath, "God damn it." I froze. I was halfway through a snack and whipped my head toward him. He looked up, saw my expression, and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "You said the G word." He smirked. "The G word." I pointed. "You said God damn it." He sighed, sat up, and wiped his hands. "Yeah, well, adults get a little more leeway, kiddo." "Why?" He looked like he was about to give a long explanation, but instead he chuckled. "Because we've earned the right to say dumb stuff when we're tired or hurt." That didn't feel like a real answer, but it did tell me one thing: my dad knew all the words. He just chose not to use them around us. Suddenly, all those quiet phone calls he took in the garage made more sense. I bet he was swearing like a sailor when he talked to his buddies. Or maybe it was just something that happened when you became an adult, like driving a car, or buying beer, or eating ice cream for dinner. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't. Instead, I just filed it away in my growing collection of things grown-ups never explain, but are clearly true. Summer came, and my mom signed me up for church camp. Not because we were religious, more because it was cheap, had a good reputation, and would give you some nice structure. That's how she put it. Structure. That word followed me everywhere. So I went. Packed my bag with the usual sunscreen, sandals, that horrifying one-piece swimsuit that rode up my butt, and of course, my secret list of bad words tucked into the back of my diary. I wasn't planning to use them. I just liked having them. But church camp, oh man, that place was a trip. By day, we were singing songs about being sheep and playing alternate frisbee in sandals. But by night, in the cabins, kids let loose. Swearing contests, secret dares, confession circles where kids told stories about sneaking out, stealing candy, or swearing in front of their baby siblings. And I became legendary. Not because I swore a lot, but because I had the best vocabulary. They'd never seen someone my age know so many curse words and their supposed meanings. They called me the walking swear jar. Wait, what's a bastard again? Someone asked. I'd answer like a scholar. Technically, it means someone born out of wedlock, but now it's just kind of like calling someone a jerk. I became a resource, a fell-mouthed librarian, the Hermione Granger of vulgarity. But I didn't actually say most of them. I still felt weird crossing that line. Like I was holding a loaded Nerf gun I wasn't ready to fire. Still, there was something exhilarating about being the one with the knowledge, the one who had peeked behind the curtain and could explain the world in all its messy, profane glory. It was bound to happen. My brother was 2 years younger, nosy, and very aware that I was hiding something cool. One day after school, I came home to find my diary sitting on my bed open. He was sitting cross-legged next to it, grinning. "What's a room job?" he asked. I died. No, like spiritually, emotionally I died on the spot. I snatched the book, turned bright red, and screamed, "You weren't supposed to see that." He cracked up. "The stuff is amazing. Where'd you even hear these words?" "Give it back. I already read them all. You're like a swear wizard." I didn't know whether to be flattered or horrified. My list had been sacred, a personal journey, and now it was community property. Worse yet, he told our parents. Course he did. That night, there was a very serious talk. My parents weren't mad, just concerned. Why were you writing all of this down? Mom asked gently. I told her the truth, because I didn't want to be the kid who didn't understand again. She nodded slowly, thoughtfully. Then bless her, she said, okay, let's go through them together, and I'll tell you what they actually mean. I was shocked. She sat me down at the kitchen table, handed me a HID lighter, and we started going word by word. We crossed off the ones I misunderstood, annotated the others. It was the weirdest bonding moment of my life, and it's when I realized, sometimes, the only thing more powerful than a swear word is someone explaining it to you like it's no big deal. I wish I could tell you my first deliberate use of the F word was bold, confident, and dramatic, maybe shouting it in a fit of teenage rage while slamming a door or using it in perfect comedic timing to nail a joke. It was not. It happened in a Target parking lot. I was 12, which I now recognize is the peak age for trying on adult behavior like a coat that doesn't quite fit yet. I had just started middle school, had a flip phone, and was convinced I understood the world. I had also just gone through an extremely humiliating experience involving gym class, a too loose pair of shorts, and an unfortunately timed tumble during a group dodgeball game. Long story short, everyone saw my underwear. I got into the car that day, cheeks burning, brain spinning, and the moment the door shut and Mom asked how school went, I snapped. It sucked. Effing dodgeball can go F itself. There was silence. Mom stared at me, I stared at her. For a second, I thought she might cry, or yell, or do both. Instead, she just blinked. Do you want to talk about it? She asked softly. No, I muttered, already regretting everything. Okay, she said, and drove. That was it. No lecture, no grounding, just a pause in time. Later that night, as I replayed the scene, I realized something. It hadn't felt good to say it. It hadn't given me any power or made me feel cool. It had just come out an ugly little release valve on a day that made me feel very small. The word didn't fix anything. My underwear moment still existed in the annals of middle school history, but it had marked something like crossing a little invisible boundary. I'd spoken a word that had once been terrifying to me, and the world kept turning. In the months that followed, something shifted. I started swearing more, quietly at first, with close friends, behind closed doors. Not in a try-hard way, just folded into speech like punctuation. The words that once felt electric now had purpose. A way to say, I'm tired, I'm scared, this is unfair, and eventually, I'm angry. Because swearing, once you learn how to wield it, can be like armor. A way to step into a situation and show you're not going to be easily pushed around. And I never became one of those kids who swore all the time. You know, the type dropping F-bombs between every sentence like it's a verbal comma. That wasn't me. For me, it stayed special. Like seasoning. You use too much, it ruins the whole meal. But when you get it right, it hits. Thanksgiving dinner that year was different. My brother and I had been more open with our parents lately. The swear list incident somehow thawed the ice in our house. Dad even started saying hell in front of us, sometimes just casually, like it was no big deal. Then, between bites of stuffing, my brother looked up and said, Remember when I found your diary, and you had room job written down but thought it was a hair salon thing? I dropped my fork. Mom started choking on wine. Dad burst out laughing. I wanted to disappear, but instead of exploding with shame, I laughed too, harder than I expected. It was freeing. We all cracked up for a good 5 minutes. My grandma, confused but trying to be polite, just smiled and said, Kids these days. That was the moment I realized my family wasn't rigid, just evolving, slowly, like a tree learning to bend with the wind. We weren't the kind of household that would encourage foul language, but we also weren't going to pretend it didn't exist. And that made all the difference. It was a Tuesday. Mom had just gotten off a stressful phone call with our insurance company. Something about billing codes and paperwork that was supposed to be faxed but never was. She hung up, rubbed her temples, and mumbled, Absolute bullshit. I gasped so loud you'd think I'd seen a ghost. She looked at me and shrugged. What? It is. I grinned. Didn't think you had it in you. She grinned back. You'd be surprised. That day changed something for me, not just because she'd used a forbidden word, but because I saw her differently, not just as Mom, but as a person. A woman with thoughts and frustrations, and the right to call was when she saw it. It was weirdly inspiring. It was my birthday. I had just turned 18 and was FaceTiming my mum from college. We were laughing about something I don't remember what, but she said, "You're still my baby." I smiled and replied, "You're the best motherfucker in the world." She gasped theatrically, "Excuse me?" I laughed. "Too soon?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Still funny." There was something full circle about it, like I'd taken the original moment, that car ride on the first day of school, and rewritten it with love. What was once terrifying had become a family joke. A scar turned into a story we could laugh at. I think a lot about language now. About how the words we're afraid of are often the ones we don't understand. About how the most dangerous thing isn't a kid learning the F word, it's a kid who's afraid to ask questions. Who thinks knowledge is shameful. Who hides curiosity because they don't feel safe being honest. The F word didn't ruin me. It didn't poison my innocence or corrupt my soul. It taught me that words have weight, but we get to decide what they mean to us. And sometimes they grow with us. Now when I hear a little kid say something naughty, I don't flinch. I smile, because I know there's probably a story behind it. A moment they laugh about one day, maybe even write about. And if they're lucky, their mom will laugh too.